I even whispered to him, asking if I could take another step back. He smiled, nodding in agreement. The animated doll seemed enormous in that tight space. The elastic fabric covering my obstacle was slightly damp, as if a light rain had passed through it. I let the drops run off slowly. My skin was still warm from the night when I found myself standing at the bus stop, the last one that time, with my pink breasts resting under the light fabric of my dress. The heavy air of asphalt and waiting stuck to the back of my neck, warm and dense, like an invisible veil hanging over me. "Hi, Clara," smiled discreetly, tossing my hair to the side, feeling the eyes that slid over my skin like ants attracted to sugar. It was always like that. From a very early age, I had realized that my body was an uncomfortable paradox and a treasure at the same time, an altar and a sin wrapped in the same promise. My curves never went unnoticed. Her generous breasts, firm as ripe fruit hanging from a strong branch, swayed with each step, while her wide, determined hips seemed to have a life of their own, tracing a path full of intentions through the streets of Chicago. Each movement of mine was a veiled invitation, a silent confession to anyone willing to see beyond the obvious. What I'm telling you is common to me, but it doesn't apply to everyone. I have friends who don't have this audacity, this flexibility, this courage that I carry like an indispensable accessory. They prefer discretion, a timid step, their eyes lowered. Me. I like what I awaken. The bus arrived, squealing its brakes as if it were tired of its own routine. I already knew that look from the driver, that flash that ran over my cleavage before he even thought about opening the door. He stopped right in front of me, leaving the access free like a gentleman with not-so-noble intentions. But oh, it wasn't his turn. Who knows, maybe one day. I went up, sliding between sweaty bodies, overstuffed bags, cheap perfumes mixed with the smell of the living city. There were no seats available, of course, but I never minded. I preferred to stand. That way, I controlled the show. I positioned myself at the back, where the flickering light from the ceiling cast sinful shadows on the anonymous faces. And that was when I saw him. He was there, a worker with a face marked by long days and invisible calluses. He carried the weight of an entire city on his shoulders, holding the iron bar above his head as if it were his lifeline. His arms, outstretched and firm, stretched his shirt, revealing a patch of brown skin where sweat ran in small secret rivulets, sliding like something that should not be seen, but that was now there, right before my eyes. Our eyes met. A moment too quick to be casual and a little too long to be innocent. The heat between us was not just the stifling heat of that crowded bus. It was something else. Something that pulsed, something that burned slowly, like a match about to touch the fuse. And I smiled. Because I knew that, from then on, the trip would be much more interesting. The vehicle took off and the ballet began. Each curve pushed us towards each other, his hips meeting mine like birds that recognize their nest even in the dark. He wore faded jeans that told stories of hard work, and I wore a spandex dress that breathed along with me as the asphalt bumped. His body became a pendulum, forward, pressing it against the cold glass, backward, leaving a void that only his heat filled. In the reduced third gear, I felt a firm volume growing against my back, pulsing like a clandestine heart. It was only I who had taken a small step back. "Sorry," he lied after a sudden stop that stuck us together like wax. "The bus is pretty wild today," I replied, turning enough so that my breath hit his neck. His fingers tightened on the metal bar, veins springing like roots from beneath the earth. I asked him politely, of course, quietly, "Can I take a step back? Would you allow me? I'm short on space here." "Of course, it's all yours," he said with a protective smile. The ritual continued. His hot breath on my shoulder, my back arching imperceptibly. The fabric of the dress was thin, The kind that, if you want, you just have to move it to the side and it was ready to receive. When the driver started uphill, he took advantage of the angle to deepen the movement. And I, clever, let my hair fall to the side, exposing the back of my neck. Someone coughed. No one saw. At the final stop, we got out together. My dress stuck to my thighs from the shared heat. I asked him to come with me, because it was already quite late. Where the streetlight blinked like a wordless accomplice, his hands found my back, and I just held on like a professional against the rough wall. His skillful movements devouring the salt from my skin, while his fingers explored the elasticity of the fabric that covered me. You drive better than the driver, he said, smiling, as the doll brushed against him. He laughed low and hoarse and then acted. He moved to the side to make the doll easier, his fingers navigating like a captain in a rough sea, and I, of course, like a seamstress on the zipper. The wall was splashing against my back, but I didn't even feel it. My body was now an instrument tuned to each touch. The professional managed to lift me up. The spandex gave way like a sigh. From the side, he settled into an ancient rhythm. I sweated from being in the heat of the bus, and moans mixed with the smell of oil coming from his clothes. When he finished, he slid back, his jeans still open, revealing a thread of light that outlined the doll. The cell phone fell to the floor while it was ringing. I looked to pick it up, saw that it was dripping on the floor. He laughed again, this time with a gleam in his eyes that promised repetition. "Best ride home I've had on a bus," he replied, adjusting his belt while I composed myself. The dress stuck to my body like a damp second skin. Walking home, I felt the dress dry slowly, the fabric rubbing against my legs like a reminder. When I took it off, I noticed the light stain. I threw it in the sink to wash, let the piece soak, laughing as I imagined what my neighbor would think if she saw it. And so Clara continued on, owner of the night bus and the secret that dripped onto the asphalt. Did you like this story? If so, leave a comment telling us what you thought, and, if you've ever experienced something similar, share it with us. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss any new content. Here, we always bring life stories, reflections and real experiences, all with great sincerity. Thank you for watching until the end and for being part of this journey. See you in the next video.